In this lesson, we're going to look at how we can define a business rule in Sage CRM using field-level scripting that is executed on the server. Now here you can see that I'm looking at Sage CRM, and if you look at the URL in the address bar, this changes as I move throughout the system. And it changes, it collects more information within the URL that is describing the context until finally we arrive at a communication screen and the URL can be looked at and understood within the screen you can see here. It's complex, but it is understandable. Now, Sage CRM uses a concept of system context that allows it to keep track of what entities within the current session are being used. And this is part of the state information that is recorded within the URLs that are passed into CRM to generate the pages. The system will always be in context of the current logged on user, and as you view data, so the context will change. So for example, while on the person summary screen, you'll be in the context of the user, the company, and the person. Within scripts that are executed within the server, and that's the create script, validate, and table level and workflow scripts, this context is accessed through a CRM object. Now the URL that we looked at is complex, but we can understand it. So key 0 here, sometimes called the dominant key, tells us the main current context. Key 1 tells us the ID of the company. Key 2 tells us the ID of the person. Key 6 tells us the ID of the communication. And Key 7 tells us the ID of the opportunity. Now, I mentioned the current user object, and we're always in context of the current logged on user. And there is this object called the current user object that allows us to access data about this user. Now, how this actually translates into the way in which we can define a business rule is to use a little bit of JavaScript. And so we can use the current user object in our first simple create script. Now this is actually also showing the use of some system variables called valid and error string. And this script will check what team the current user is in, and if they're not within the sales team, then an error will be thrown. You can see there the flag valid being deliberately set to be false, and then an error message will be written to the screen. So this is actually demonstrating the use of valid and error for debugging purposes. But I've now added this script into the company name field within the company box long screen. You can see that when I look at the company summary screen, because I'm logged on as a system administrator, somebody who's in the operations team, I get the hello world message. Now please note that this message displays in both view mode and edit mode. This shows that the create script is being run as the metadata from the screen is assembled, and that happens whenever the screen is requested. If I select save, we learn another important lesson. Create scripts cannot interrupt the commit process. This means that create scripts are not going to block saves within the database. Now we can use an example of a rule that provides an informative or warning rule onto the screen. This is actually an example that is going to tell the user that they're just about to do something that would be blocked if they continue to do it. And so this code has also introduced us to the CRM object and the get context info method. You can see here that we can reference the company that is in context and get any of its data. And so here I may want to retrieve the company SLA ID field that holds the service level. And if this field is null, it's empty, then we can use the valid and error string system variables to trigger a warning onto the screen. Now I can add that rule into the case screen, so this is the case reference fields create script within the case detail box screen. When a user starts to create a new case for a company, the message will warn the user that they're just about to run into a problem. The exact same script could also be used within the validate script to block the commitment of the record, and that will be looked at in another lesson. And just as a note, a similar rule could be created using the client-side API.